Recording in progress.
All right, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thank you, thank you. All right, it is Tuesday, May 10th, 3 o'clock. So we're going to call the Department of Public Works work session to order. Madam Clerk.
Malinowski, Pugh, McBride,
Here.
Livingston,
Here.
Teratio, Joe Walker, Barron,
Here.
Paul Walker, Mackey,
Here.
English. I believe Miss Councilwoman English is on the Zoom. Newton. Councilwoman Newton is also in the Zoom. We have a
All right, just so we're clear, I want to make sure everyone heard. On the Zoom today, we have Councilwoman Newton, Councilwoman English. The Chair Walker did contact me. He was not able to attend. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Next on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda.
so moved.
Second.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Barron? Yes. McBride? Yes. Livingston?
Yes.
Mackey?
Yes.
Approved.
And sorry, one more for the record. Councilmember Pugh did contact me as well and said he would not be able to attend. All right, item 3 on the agenda is introductions. Administrator Brown.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. We do have Department of Public Works represented on this afternoon as a part of this work session. We're going to introduce the Director of Public Works, which is Mike Maloney, and allow him to introduce the rest of the folks on the list that will be speaking a part of this process on this afternoon. Director Maloney.
Thank you, sir. We also have with us in attendance Deputy Director Chris Eversman. We have County Engineer Stephen Staley and Assistant County Engineer Sharani Fuller. This project is a Public Works engineering project, and the leader is our project manager of this project is Sharani Fuller. And she will be introducing the rest of the team, the consultants involved, and getting into some of the handouts we have. You're going to see some numbers for your district and for overall that appear very large because, it's looking at all the numbers over a 5-year period, which is certainly a condensed period. But one of the things that we're also thinking about and need to be mindful of is that we also have the Penny project that has paved 490 roads and at 105 miles throughout Richland County for road resurfacing projects on county maintained roads. So those are parts of the equation we'll be continuing to put into place. And at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Assistant County Engineer Fuller.
Thank you, Director Maloney. Good afternoon. We appreciate your time. I'd also like to introduce our consultants with Weston and Sampson. Mr. Tom Kiefer will be helping me to present, and Mr. Ken Berger is in the audience. So as Director Maloney mentioned, we're here to discuss the most recent pavement management study conducted by Weston Sampson and in coordination with the Department of Public Works. So this presentation is intended to provide you with background information and then build up to the final results of the several places for discussion. But that said, if you feel like any subject matter needs more attention, then feel free to stop us. Okay, that's it. So the county road maintenance system is a term we commonly use in public works. This is a reference to roads where the right-of-way has been deeded to the county, and through that ownership, the county becomes responsible for the maintenance of the road. This system itself includes both paved and unpaved roads. However, for the purpose of this discussion, we'll only be considering paved roads. Public Works contracted Weston Sampson to conduct the pavement management study in the summer of 2021, and data collection began in July of 2021. In later slides, we'll present you with more information on exactly what Weston Sampson was tasked to do during the study. However, right now we just want to focus on the study starting in July of 2021. And at that time, there were 610.05 miles of paved road in the county road maintenance system. As an update to that, at the end of April 2022, there's now 633.33 miles of paved road in our system. That's an increase of 23 miles in less than a year. The majority of that came in from new development. They contributed 19.5 miles, and 3.74 miles came in as is, which is sometimes referred to as abandoned roads. The 610 number is what we used for this study, but I want you to just keep in mind that 633 number because it'll be relevant in later discussions. Next slide. So we want to move into a discussion of how roads are selected. But before we do that, we have to determine how the funding is available to each district. So what you see on the screen in front of you is directly from Section 21, Chapter 21 of the ordinance. Paragraph A discusses what is available for improvement, and then paragraph B is specific to road resurfacing. So I'm going to read that. Road resurfacing funds for the resurfacing of existing paved roads will be distributed by county council district based on that district's portion of the total county paved road mileage. This slide is also taken directly from Section 21 of Chapter 21. The fund distribution is referred to as the pro rata, and the equation is shown here. So district paved road paving funds equal the total paved road resurfacing funds times the district paved road mileage divided by total paved road mileage. So what that's saying is that the funding that's available to each district equals the total funds available to the county times the percentage of paved roads in each district. So this section is telling us a couple things too, that the mileage, again, we're talking about paved road mileage only. That mileage has to already be in the county road maintenance system. It's also telling us a little bit about how we select the roads. We need to do it based on availability of funding, priority within the district, and also as determined by the condition analysis maintained by Public Works. So I do just want to pause here and make sure everyone feels comfortable with this equation. If you have any questions about what we've talked about so far.
I'll wait until.
Yes, Ms. McBride.
Halfway understand that. If I looked at. Okay, can you hear me?
I can now, thank you.
Okay, so some districts don't have on here anything being paved, so you can't divide anything into nothing. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure whether I'm missing something.
Yes. So right now, we're just discussing what's in the ordinance and how we're allowed to distribute the funds.
Okay, so at a later
There's-
time, we'll have another discussion
We will.
for those 5 districts that were not included
Yes, ma'am.
at all here.
Is that the Excel sheet?
Yeah, this is your
Yes,
sheet.
okay,
So it's
yep.
about 5 districts
Yep.
that are not on here.
Yes, that is.
So I was saying this is 0, so you can't do that equation
And
unless I
that-
missed something.
Yes, ma'am. That Excel sheet is for the abandoned roads discussion. So yes, we will get to that.
All right, thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I had one question,
Yes, ma'am.
just to confirm county paved roads. That total number is looking at roads that are not maintained by the state or a municipality.
Correct.
So you've already removed out those roads.
Yes.
Okay,
Those
thank
are
you.
only roads in the county
County.
maintained system. Yes. Okay, so
Excuse, one more, sorry, Madam Clerk, is there a way on our screen where you can show our other council members, or are you gonna monitor in case one of them have questions and we're not seeing them?
Yes, I will be monitoring and letting you know.
Thank you.
okay, this table shows the breakdown of mileage per district. And again, this is as of July 2021. So these are old district boundaries. We recognize that redistricting has occurred based on just the timing of the information. What you're seeing in this presentation is July and is the old districts. So I just want to look at this table quickly. If you scroll down to District 9, they have the highest percentage at 19.85. District 1's not too far behind them. And then we have various ranges all the way down to 0.28% in District 5. So what this means, quite simply, is that 19.85% of the total funding for road resurfacing is going to go to District 9.
Mr. Livingston, you recognize?
We going to at some point revisit this and consider the new changes based on redistricting? And the reason
Yes.
for that is, particularly with my district, it had picked up quite a bit of the county portion that's not considered now.
Yes, sir. We recognize that that is essential because moving forward, if we're showing that a road is in District 8, but it's really in District 9, then we're not distributing the funds correctly. So that is something we're looking into right now.
Yes, Ms. Barron, you recognize?
Yes, so with District 9, and I guess, and I'm trying to put into understanding as far as what you've already shared. So District 9 has the highest percentage because there are more roads there. Is that correct?
Yes.
So that's why the majority of the funding is coming there.
Yes, they have the highest percentage of roads in the county.
So it really is not about equity at this point when it comes to funding.
Equity being mileage of roads.
My question is funding, not equity in the roads, because you can't have equity in the roads because, of course, District 9 has
There.
the most roads. So when we look at funding, we fund the roads based upon the number of the roads, not necessarily the amount
condition.
of funding that
Yeah.
comes there.
Yes,
So
sir.
if I have in District 7, 10 roads, and in District 9, they have 25, then they're going to get the majority of the funding,
Regardless of the condition of
re-
those roads is what you're
regardless
saying,
of the
yes.
funding. Right. So I guess where I'm going with this is it a possibility because there's so many roads, and that's your district, Ms. Mackey, and I'm not putting you out.
No, it's fine.
Yeah,
I'm very aware that it's my
Okay,
district.
so
Yep.
yeah, so I don't want, it's not personal. I just want to understand. So because District 9 has so many roads, is it the possibility that there could be a district that could be left out of this process because of lack of funding?
I'm going to say no. Director Maloney can help me on this one. It's going to be over a period of time that you'll see the pro rata even out. So the distribution is the way it is based on the percentages. However, yes, District 5 is going to get the least amount of money. But over maybe 5 years, they'll have enough money to do what needs to be done to all of their roads.
Okay, so that you did make that clear to me, and I do understand that now. Thank you. And I guess my concern is, and I think, and I've got one of my constituents here today that lives on one of these roads, and I'm just concerned that if we're going by the number of roads in a district, that at some point it seems like that's why it's taken so long to get to certain roads, because the system is overwhelmed with all the roads in a particular district.
Yes.
And this is and this isn't new to me because we presented this 2 years ago, almost to the day, in a work session. The first one I did with the county and following the ordinance, and it's really just saying we're getting to all the roads, and the distribution by county. We just want you as council members, because you represent an area, know that it's going to be fair because it's based on the miles that are out there. It's going to take a 5-year period to have that balance. So last year when we were approved to do CTIP, and we had a sizable amount of CTC funding to do those, I started a pro rata chart to show what we did. And what we did, we saw, well, in District 1, we overdid. And then in District 7 and 9, maybe we underdid. And so then the next year we can consider that as we select roads, because it's not going to be perfect, because the roads are however long they are, and we're just trying to achieve a balance around the county so that all the roads get done, and they all have to be done at some point. And so you're going to see that as we get deeper into the presentation on the different types of improvements or maintenance of the roads that we can do in a capital fashion. But we will get to all the roads, and it's going to take about 5 years to get to the balance of that pro rata within all districts.
Thank you, Director Maloney, and that does help me tremendously. And I think that for my constituency, I can clearly articulate it a little bit better. Not saying that it, like you say, it's not perfect. That made me jump for joy, but I understand the why now. So thank you.
Ms. Newton and then Ms. McBride.
Thank you. Sorry, it took a second to unmute. Just following up on Ms. Barron's question, looking at the formula, just wanted to clarify. Are you basing it on the total number of roads total, or only the total number of paved roads?
It is the total number of.
This formula, there also is a disadvantage if you have a district that has a high percentage of paved roads that you would want to be paved. It mathematically, you're always going to be lower, because there's some districts where almost all of their roads are going to be paved, and so just the math is going to always shake out differently because of that. So thanks.
Yes, I'd like to add to that.
Director Maloney, you're recognized.
Thank you, ma'am. There is another formula just identical to this in section 2120 for the unpaved roads. And so wherever we have an allocation of money to pave dirt roads, that we have that same pro rata. So then we're looking at unpaved roads, and that's where District, say, 11 and 10 would have more than a lot of the other districts, like District 9 having more paved roads. So more of the funds for that would be going to those districts.
Thank you, Director Maloney. Ms. McBride.
Just to follow up to Ms. Barron's comments, and I remember us working on this, Mr. Maloney, and I thank you for the work that you've done with it. There is an issue, and Ms. Barron sort of touched on it, because we're looking at the overall roads, but there's such thing as equity. And if you've got much more than another neighborhood with paved roads, and then one with less that really needs it, there comes that equity issue that we have to look at in determining how the roads are selected and giving some type of consideration to that, even if it's some type of rating system. And we discussed that at one time. So there is an equity issue, Ms. Barron, that we're dealing with. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we have taken the total funding for the county and we've distributed it to each district. So now we need to determine how we're going to distribute the funding within the districts. We have to choose the roads, but we also have to choose the correct treatment type for each of the roads. This is important because the wrong treatment type on a road is actually a waste of money. So if you have a road to be resurfaced and you put preservation on it, then that preservation doesn't do what it's supposed to do and it doesn't last the amount of time that it should last. And the reverse is true. If you have a road that could be preserved, which costs less than resurfacing, and you resurface it, then you've also wasted money. So we have to find an objective method that we can systematically apply across the county to each district and each road. And this is what we believe the pavement study does. It determines the condition of every road in our system and then provides us the ability for a direct comparison and ranking of the roads. The study itself generates a pavement condition index for each road. That index is a measurement of the severity of different types of pavement stresses that you're probably familiar with, things like alligator cracking, longitudinal and lateral cracking. The equipment that they use in the pavement study actually takes measurements of these widths and depths. So it creates this index. The index ranges from 0 to 100, 100 being something that would be a newly built road or newly resurfaced road, so something you would consider to be an excellent quality. And then a 0 being something that is almost fully deteriorated and very close to what you would see on a dirt road. So to date, Richland County has performed 2 pavement management studies. The first one was in 2015, and it was led by the Transportation Penny Department. And the second one is the one we're talking about today that was led by Weston Sampson. I'm gonna let Tom jump in now.
And how the data was collected. So to kind of piggyback what Shirani was saying, what we did is this is a very objective way to actually do the roads. When you collect the data, it's a mobile unit that goes out and basically scans the entire network. So you has all your data in GIS. We get that data, we put in the mobile unit. That mobile unit goes out to every district and drives the entire lane. It does like a laser scan of those roads. It takes the deterioration of the road and creates an algorithm that produces a PCI rating. So it basically measures every crack, everything that's happened in that pavement section. It's scanning it to produce that. And then what you have is your index sheet. If you turn to the next slide, your index sheet will give you, we're just using AB circle, but it gives you the section ID where it's at, the PCI rating, the GPS coordinates. It's basically giving you when the data was collected, so that way you know the exact section of the road. Because it's very, the PCI data is so exact. Go to the next slide. What happens is, and we don't want to have any confusion here, and also too, I want to add in, is in the district, it's not based on the number of roads you have. It's based on your total length of those roads. So you might have you might have 25 roads, but this district could have 21 miles of roads, but only 10 roads. So it's based on the length to give that even distribution. In there, if you look at this exhibit we have up on the screen, you'll notice that some of the roads, their shading goes from different colors. And the reason being is you might have one road that has multiple levels of deterioration in it. You might have it where a year ago at an intersection, you repaved it, then 100 yards down the road, then you have it, completely failing. If you go to the next slide, here's a great example going down one of the roadways. That'll show you, like in sections, you can see over the years where you had some pavement preservation. You can see the bad areas where you're actually going to have more deterioration. So that's how you can get your cost estimate to say, all right, this road's going to cost us. We have a few sections where we're going to have nothing to do. Other sections where we have moderate, and you have high end sections where you're going to have complete full reconstruction on those roads.
Tom, can I jump back real quick?
Yeah.
So I just want to point out something. This is a real road. I took the name off. The road, in the first study, I believe what they did was they just drove the road and they took an average. So in this study, what we did was we asked them to divide the road up into segments. So this is one road, 5 different segments. And if you look at the PCI column, the segments go from 56, which would be about the middle of your index, up to 96. So that's the reason we asked them to produce the numbers that way. The last three sections there from 96, 90, 94, those are in really good condition. So we know just by looking at these numbers, that was resurfaced recently. But for whatever reason, this other section of the same road wasn't. But we can look at these numbers and come up with, we know automatically without seeing the road, we can kind of figure what needs to be done. We would actually go out there, obviously, and look at the road and evaluate it before we put it on a contract. But this gives us a better idea of what kind of treatments we need just looking at these numbers this way.
And to add to that, the problem you can have is you think, well, just take an average. Well, you with the pavement program, you can't take an average road. You're not going to get real numbers. That's the benefit of actually doing the mobile unit and having the PCI data collected like that. So that way you can actually have more exact and actually adjust your budgets to fit that. And that's kind of what we did.
And the average of this would be about a 65. So that's a big difference. If all the information I had was AB circles is 65, that is a whole lot different than what I'm seeing here.
So then next what we have here's the combined district. So if you look at it, 0 to 25, that's the worst roads we have in the entire, for the entire county. You have 17.81 miles that are in need of basically full reclamation. Then you have 26 to 50 rating, and you got 13 or 81 miles of that, which is 13% of Richland County. And we have some exhibits, we'll get into those later, but just kind of go over the numbers. And then you have 50 to 70% of the roads, 177 miles, and then 228. The gray area, the 103 miles overall for the entire district, that's the area we did not include in the 90 to 100% because those are the roads are basically, those sections they're fine. There's nothing really, it's basically just, something was done in the last few years where they're reconstructed. So that we kind of removed that section from 90 to 100 out. Sharon, you want to add anything on that one? Nope.
Unless anybody has a question. So this is looking at the entire county and just the full breakdown of the index. So next we want to start talking about funding. So we'll start with available funding. And this table, it was in the last two CTIPs. It was created in FY21. It was the projection for the next 5 years, so 21 through 25, of all the available funding that we believed at Public Works we would be able to achieve. And then we broke it down by the different descriptions of project types. So I'm focusing in here on the column for FY23, since that is what is coming up. For that projection, it was 5.6 million was projected as the total funding. And if you look off to the right of that, 3.5 million was specifically for resurfacing. And that came from two different funding sources. One was the road maintenance fee, and the other one was C funds, which are grants from the County Transportation Committee. So we know that the road maintenance fund is currently on hold and was not a viable source of funding during the current fiscal year of 22. The other source, which was from CTC grants, this money is not guaranteed. We're in direct competition with other eligible agencies to receive any CTC funding, but right now our goal is to get 2.5 million a year. So what you should take away from this slide is that our best prediction for funding at Public Works is that we're getting about 3.5 million a year.
All right, here I want to look at, this is the kind of the needed budget. So what we're going to look at, so now you have that color table. The first one, the gray area, no action needed if you look at this chart. So we're going to talk hypothetically. What do we, let's look at how much damage we have in our entire county. And let's do a budget based on what do we actually really need to get every road up to par in every single district. So right here, the first, like we talked before, 9100, there's no action required on the top part. So you don't need, those are the roads that are actually fine throughout the entire county. Then we have our preservation stage. In our preservation, we have a total of about $16 million worth of work that needs to be done. Based on that, for preservation alone, we need $3.2 million every year for the next 5 years to get all the roads that are in that stage preserved. You go down to our overlay, same thing right there for 2023. You need $7,500,000 over the next 5 years. And then for the mill and fill and some patching, you need $5,767,000 for the next 5 years. And then full depth reconstruction, that's basically $1.8 million. So your total budget to get the county $1 million. Now, the problem is, if you go to the next slide, what we're working with, then here's a district breakdown. So basically in District 1, here's your district breakdown, what it would cost for each district over the 5 years, what it would cost each one. So District 1 would be $17 million. So we kind of did a breakdown of what your total cost would be every district in order for next 5 years for your district to be up to every road to be to that 90 to 100% level. Now that's a lot. Do you have any questions before we keep going?
Ms. McBride, you're recognized.
That the funding needs an Sorry, keep forgetting. One of the issues we had with transportation is that we didn't account for inflation and the cost. Did you do that in these projections as much as possible?
We have a chart, but in these projections, no, we stayed away from that because of the unknown. And Sharni, we'll go in more in depth on that one as we get further down.
Okay, and one more question, and I don't know whether this is the appropriate place for it. When you're doing the paving or resurfacing, some last a short time, some last a long time. Is there a different cost for the type of materials you use? And was that taken in consideration in terms of whether than getting cheaper materials, getting ones that would last longer are the best type of material to use?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So in this particular study, what we did if you see this chart, there are 4 different actions here. So preservation was coming in, and you can see a dollar figure per mile next to that. Is that 7? I can't read it. So, okay, 70,400. So, and then you can go down to overlay, and you can see that's at 211. Then mill and fill, which is milling of existing asphalt, filling, and then doing some full depth patching. So that's at a higher cost of 352. And then full depth reclamation, which would be basically rebuilding your road, is coming in at 528. So we did take into consideration a couple different types, and these are the most commonly used. So they do vary in cost. And then that also goes back to what we were previously saying about making sure that you choose the correct treatment for each road.
I was just concerned that I noticed that some roads been paved and then 2 years later they need paving again. And I was always concerned about, are we using the right materials? Not only in the county, but in the city also.
Yes, I would say at 2 years, then that's a quality issue. There was probably something wrong with either the quality of the material put down or maybe the method it was put down with.
We're ensuring that we have good quality material.
Yes, ma'am. Preservation typically should last 5 to 7 years, and it should bring your roads back up into that. We're looking for that 90 to 100 with whatever method we use. So if we use preservation, we should get up to 7 years of extended life in that 90 range. And then after those 7 years, we would have to look at either doing another preservation or doing something like resurfacing, which depending on the volume of traffic and the loads you get, then that could last up to 30 years in some of our neighborhoods, if not longer.
Thank you. Ms. English, you're recognized, then Mr. Livingston.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just have a quick question because I'm mainly rural. When we're paving these roads, and I get a lot of these questions, and this may be Public Works, does this include our ditches or the side roads that we have no medians on the side of our roads? And so I was just curious about that, or if that's another department.
No, ma'am, this doesn't consider ditches or drainage. It's just the roads themselves.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Mr. Livingston.
Just quick to make sure I understand what we need in terms of funding. So in order to complete our capital improvement plan over 5 years, we're gonna need at least $18 million each year.
Yes, sir, and that is if you were to get everything done in 5 years.
And how much what's our revenue for roads currently? I know you mentioned the C funds, probably about 2.5. What else?
We were using the road maintenance fee at about
how much of that
$1
were we
million
using annually?
I'm sorry.
How much of that were we using annually to pave roads?
Approximately $1 million a year.
wanted to make the point about how far we're away from 18 million.
Yes, sir. We would like to make that point also.
All right, carry on, please.
So, all right, this is kind of where you're going with that. This is a great slide right here. So now if we're going to look at preservation for the entire, we have a breakdown of these exhibits so you can see each district, what your numbers are, but this is a combined district. So right now we're going to look at preservation over 5 years. Based on this, what we did is we have $3.5 million each year. We divided those 500,000 in preservation and $1 million each into overlay, mill and fill, and full depth reconstruction. Based on that, if you go across, the table and you look at preservation all the way for 5 years, you have $2.5 million. What you really need in 5 years is an additional $16 million. And based on what your budget is right now, it's going to take you 32 years before you ever fulfill the entire preservation for the county. Now we go to the overlay, the same thing. You get $5 million over the next 5 years. You're shy $37.5 million. Based on your current budget right now, if you don't do something to help increase that, you're at almost 37 years before you get the overlay done for the entire county. And then the same thing goes for the mill and fill, 5 million, you need 28 million, you got 28 years, is that right? 28 years. And then for the full depth reconstruction, you're shy 9 million, and that's about 9 years. Wanted to kind of see, kind of put in perspective on what Public Works is trying to maintain, the animal they have to attack, and if with the funds they have, how stretched out it is. So that way, the residents in Richland County can understand, what you're up against. It's not easy. You've got a lot of handle, and you're doing it on a very limited budget. $3.5 million it's a lot of money, but in the grand scheme of it, you're shy almost $15 million to actually do what you should be doing each year.
Madam Vice Chair.
Mr. Brown.
Just real quickly, one of the things that I think everybody knows but we hadn't said here is that as time goes on, these conditions change. So these numbers, to a question that was asked earlier about inflation, well, the deterioration of the road is occurring based off weather and usage. And so these categories shift. So you may go from a preservation to where, because you didn't do it within a certain period of time, now it requires a full rebuild. So just wanted to point that out. I'm sure everybody probably is thinking about that, but certainly want to articulate that for those members of the community who are listening in to the work session as well.
Thank you, Administrator Brown. That is a good point to consider.
So with that being said, since it's consistently evolving, the numbers have changed. So that's what we came up with, trying to just kind of create stagnant numbers so we can just have realistic from this date moving forward. This is what we're looking at. Go ahead, Sharani.
Madam Chair, just quickly to add to what Mr. Brown is saying.
Recognize Mr. Livingston.
You're going to have additional dirt roads already being paved too, so that's going to add to the cost too.
So as the discussion has led us directly into, we did have to make some assumptions to come up with the numbers that we're showing you in these tables. We basically took a snapshot of time and kind of froze everything in July. So we assumed roads are not deteriorating as time passes. No new roads are coming into the system. The budget of 3.5 does not increase or decrease. Inflation does not exist. And we also ignored that the penny transportation also has efforts in resurfacing. So the reality of the situation is those things are not true, but we can't exactly measure the degree right now to which they're happening. So we have these documents and these tables, and we have other tables too that we didn't put into the presentation, where we can make those changes, and the numbers will then change along with it. So we can put in inflation, we can add mileage. We know that based off certain predictors like volume and loads, we can make realistic predictions about life cycles of roads. So we can decide how the roads are deteriorating and what treatments need to be used and how we need to shift those numbers as the roads are deteriorating. We acknowledge that new development is happening, and then that goes back to the 23 miles I mentioned that have already come into the system just since the study started. Also, as the county grows, more residents are coming to the county. We assume that means that more people will be contributing to the road maintenance fund, and therefore the budget doesn't stay at 3.5. Now, whether their contributions are enough to actually fix all of our roads is another discussion. And then, as I mentioned, the penny transportation has been resurfacing. The number I pulled was 18 miles for FY22 is what they were doing. So if they're around 20 miles every year, then they're having a big contribution right now into our system. And that's county roads. They do other roads, but that 18 miles in the past year is on county roads. DPW did 16 miles of road in 2022. So together we're at about 34 miles that we're touching a year. And if you use that 34 based on the 610 miles of road, so we'll keep that number, then we're at about an 18-year cycle with both us and transportation contributing to resurfacing.
And so this study was July 2021. Previously, had we done a study at the county, a 5-year study, and what was the success of that? Or was it a carryover into this study? Had we completed?
The only other study that I know of was the 2015 study, and that was led by Penny Transportation, and that is what they're using, I believe, still for picking their roads.
Thank you. So just to be clear, the Penny was the only study done previous to this one.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay.
Next steps. So we obviously have to secure reliable and consistent funding. We have the data now from the pavement management study. So the next step is to incorporate actual roads into this study using the funding we have. Each year, we're going to reevaluate and refine the plan, and that will be what is our CTIP that we've been bringing to council the last 2 years. And lastly, of course, we have to carry out the plan to achieve all of our goal of a better transportation system within the county. And that concludes what we have to present to you on the pavement management study. Tom, I don't know if you want to speak about the handouts.
If you want to go through the handouts real quick, what we have in there is the first handout, the first packet you have is final PCI rating by district, graphs with cost tables. So in this first packet, you can see it's just basically the combined districts, and then you can go to your personal district and see exactly how many roads. Let's look at District 1. You get 18.65% of you have 18% of the roads in your district, and then you can see right there your percentage of your miles, and then your cost. And this is the overall cost. If you had basically an unlimited budget, and you can get your district done. The next packet is the capital improvements plan, 5-year budget, and then the overall. And in that budget, you see the needed budget. The first one, that's what, that's a realistic, not the realistic number, but that's the number that we're kind of based on hypothetically if you had, unlimited resources to get this done. And then your next section, next page is your current budget based on the $3.5 million. And that's the overall district or the entire county. And then we have it broken up by district, your percentage with your numbers. So if you look at the bottom of that graph, District 1 gets 18% of the 3.5 million. Over 5 years equals 3.2 million. And then the next sheets, we go into your district so that you can see specifically your district and what that's doing. Also, as we did the data collection and part of our package is we submitted, we're doing Street Saver for Richland County to utilize. We did a pavement management study report, which gets all this information in there. We also did GIS and Excel spreadsheets and Google Earth. This way you had 4 different formats that you can actually utilize that. So that way, if you don't have GIS on your computer, you can take the Google Earth maps and utilize them to see the roads and the ratings. The Excel sheets we utilized, what we did is we did a breakdown. I can, in a minute's notice, pop in your road, figure out the length of that road, give you a percentage, do an inflation behind that if you wanted to, and repopulate all the numbers across the entire county in minutes. We've kind of made a living document so that everything correlates to each other. So that way you have something, Richland County has something in their hands that you can utilize, not just a spreadsheet. I wanted to give something back that would actually be utilized for each year. So that way when Shirani's working on this or, Public Works is working on these, they can actually take these diagrams and these graphs and next year produce new numbers, new graphs based on the current construction that's been done for that year. So, and if you have any questions, please.
Mr. Livingston, you recognized.
Would it be for me to get a list of the roads and miles of paved roads in the new part of my district?
Yes, and also too, is we have it here, but it's hard to display when, but we broke up, we created maps for every district. So we have the entire county, and then every district has your map. So you can actually see the road, see the condition of the road. And we'll give it, when the final product, we'll have all that for everyone.
Is that based on our new district lines or the old district lines?
Old district lines.
Old district, got it.
And then, I don't think that's been, you can answer better than I can.
You were specifically asking about the new redistricting?
My question is, there's a clear new, couple of new communities, additional communities in my district. I just want to know what the roads were in that new portion.
Yes, we'll have to work on that. We're going to redistrict. It's gonna take a little bit of effort, but we'll get all the new numbers in there. I believe our GIS person is working on it right now. So once that's finished, we'll be able to incorporate that into the information that Weston Sampson has.
Thank you. Ms. McBride, you're recognized.
We have a number of districts that's changed, so when you do that, you'll do it for everyone.
Yes, ma'am.
Madam Chair, Mr. Brown, have we, for our redistricting, has that been finalized? Are we still waiting?
Yeah, we haven't received any final notice from voter registrations and elections, but we don't have any indication that any of our information was somehow incorrect or improper. So, but we have not received final information from voter registrations and elections.
But I was wondering.
Yes, thank you.
All right, hearing no other questions, you can proceed with abandoned roads.
So this is a topic that came up in a committee meeting, I believe in March. So we just wanted to touch on it for those of you who are new to Richland County like me. This discussion concerning abandoned roads and maintenance and public works goes back to 2018, at least as far as I could tell. This slide came directly from the council work session in May of 2020. And I thought it was pretty handy that they had listed out a number of meetings that have gone on so far. So to my knowledge, and I'll take correction from anyone, the abandoned roads are mainly what came in because of developers who walked away from roads. I don't know how that happened exactly, but the disservice is done to no one but the citizens of Richland County. People are moving into subdivisions where they believe they live on public roads, and they don't. Their roads are deteriorating, and oftentimes the developers have left, gone bankrupt, or changed their names and are doing business under something else. So this has been something that, people come to us, I'm sure they come to you all of the time. So this discussion's been going on for quite some time, and I believe there was a previous list. Can you open up the Excel file? This is the most recent list that came from the 2020 conversations. It went through council, as my understanding, was approved. And since probably the middle of 2020, the Engineering Division of Public Works has been working to obtain these roads. This spreadsheet, and we can, if the spreadsheet hasn't been provided to you, we can provide it. It is sortable. So if you'll click on right-of-way acquisition, so I put it in a column for yes or no, so we can change that column to no. So these are the roads that we have not yet acquired. And then you can see certain information, subdivisions, streets, owners. The strange thing about the way that we handle roads is that we give them parcel numbers. So we treat them like they're pieces of property when we all know there's no advantage to owning a road. So what happens is that the owner of the road stops paying taxes, and then those roads are treated like any other parcel of land, and they're sold at tax sale. So you'll see some interesting things on here. Roofing companies that own roads, heating and air companies. No one should own a road. A developer should own the road while they're developing. They should be responsible for the road until they turn it over to Richland County. So this sheet just gives you the roads that were approved in that last list. I believe it was 93 roads. The way it's reflected on here, I've reflected it by road segments. So there's actually showing up as more than 93 because in many cases there's one really good one in here. Bryce Creek Farms, I think. Can you scroll down? It's right there. So that road is it's one road. I don't even think it's a mile long, and it's 5 segments with 4 different owners. So that just shouldn't happen, but it does. Are there any specific questions? Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Barron, you're recognized.
Thank you, Vice Chair. This is something that I have been discussing with one of my communities, that they have roads in their subdivision that belong to individuals that they can't even track down. The roads they're falling apart. They're huge potholes there. And it's a very nice subdivision, but the roads are horrible. And as you talk about this, and we're selling the roads as a parcel of land to, on the tax sale, anyone can purchase a road. That seems to be a system that may be broken, that perhaps we need to look at a better way to address this, because specifically in Heritage Hills, since I took office, before I took office, we've been trying to track down the owners of this road. We have staff members who've been working with us to try to track down these owners so that we can at least do what is needed on the county side to get these roads straight. So I would hope that there would be some type of recommendation that could come back to council so that we don't continue this, because, at some point, I'd rather people give me the roads up front and I know that I have to maintain them than them dropping them in my lap at the tax sale. So, is there a plan to address this?
So it was a year ago, Director Maloney and County Engineer Staley arranged a meeting with the assessor and our legal team, also the treasurer. And we brought this to their attention during that meeting. I don't know and maybe someone else can speak to this, but I do know they said that they recognized it was a problem. They agreed with us. And on their end, they were going to try to flag the parcel somehow. So since that time, we have not noticed it happening as much, but we have seen it at least once or twice in the last year. So we know it does still happen. And I don't know exactly what it is they're doing behind the scenes to make sure that they're not releasing these for tax sale, but we did give multiple recommendations to them.
Or was there any conversation with planning department as far as when we're permitting developers and before they close out, making sure that it's all been turned over?
I left them out. Yes, they were involved in the same conversation. And they do turn the roads over to us. Now that is the way it should be and the way it should have always been. I can't speak honestly to what did happen to create all of these abandoned roads, because I believe it was 10, 20 years ago that this was going on. And it's not something that's happening right now.
Thank you. Ms. McBride?
This was a very controversial issue because the squeaky wheel got oil. So a lot of neighborhoods were left out. So I'm not sure, could you verify that we approved this plan?
Ms. McBride, let me not put Ms. Fuller on the spot on that one. You certainly can provide any details that I don't have, but since my time here, we've been different on this issue. We've talked about, and I believe that there is some language in that we don't even accept roads unless they meet the county standards. But there were meetings and conversation that talked about maybe at some point in time in the past, maybe somebody was an employee of the county, said to a citizen something, and now we're responsible for it. And whether or not I agree with that is immaterial, because we voted as a body, or some folks did, to accept roads that were considered on this list. So there have been a couple meetings where there have been individual votes to accept a list of roads. So yes, ma'am, I would say to you that since my time here, that has happened, and the conversations were because we felt as though as a organization that someone had given information to a citizen, and now the county should be responsible, even though we had other things in place that said if it's not meeting our standards, we don't do it. Part of that was a conversation that Ms. Mackey just asked about what was the process that was used for developers before this happened. And there were some questions about lapses in bonds and other things of that nature. So that was a long answer. The short answer is yes, ma'am. We did agree to take some abandoned roads. That was inconsistent with some other decisions that we made to not accept other abandoned roads.
So that was phase one. We voted to accept the abandoned roads. The phase two of it, we didn't vote which ones that, well, it's a question. Did we vote which ones would be given priority? Because we had existing roads that the county already owned that needed work on. So
sure,
during that conversation was determined we bringing these new roads in, and we have these old roads that the county has on and nothing has been done with those. So we didn't make a determination, or did we make a, I know I didn't vote for it if we did,
yes, ma'am,
to accept these new roads and pay them first.
I can answer that question. Definitely not pave them first. That's not, that would not be a statement that was made. But when you voted to take the roads in, you did put other parameters around them. However, they're inconsistent with what the department has to do. For example, when the certain roads were voted in, it was said that, but we don't want these roads to take any priority over any other roads that we could already have in the system. But if, Ms. Barron, if I can use your example, please forgive me for anyone, but let's just say we took over the subdivision that Ms. Barron is talking about, and you accepted those abandoned roads, and she had a road that was failing and that was causing potential harm to the residents so that it required emergency services. My folks have to go in, the team has to go in and address that because now we are responsible for those roads and those emergency conditions. So even though to your point, we said we don't want to prioritize these roads over any other roads, if the priority is urgent, we have no choice. Mm-hmm. So that has happened, and it's not been because the staff just said we're putting 1 over 2 or 2 over 1. It's because these are emergent conditions that must be now responded to, and we accepted that and made that our responsibility when we accepted the abandoned road in its current condition. So you are correct in what you stated, but it doesn't play out that way in the reality of what happens to happen from time to time.
Follow up, and I'm not going to prolong this. If I recall correctly, we did a study. So maybe the study could have been done 5 years ago and say on a scale of 1 to 10, some of the roads, 10 being the worst, the roads were 5 at that time. But now, and there had not been additional follow-up, the roads could be up to 10 in the old roads. But yet we didn't know that they had gotten worse because we didn't go back to study them, but we knew of the new ones coming in.
That's a point that's well taken. That could certainly happen.
So it goes back to making sure that those existing roads would be evaluated to make sure that they are no worse off than the new ones, because they have been a part all along of the county. And that's why we hesitated to take in some of the new ones, because we weren't completing the need to fix some of the old ones.
I hear you.
Okay, thank you.
Right,
very quickly,
else?
yes, ma'am, very quickly. Thank you, Mr. Brown. I do want to address very quickly how Public Works is handling these roads, and most of that was summed up by Mr. Brown just now. Short term, when the road comes into the system, we go out and evaluate it for emergency maintenance. So roads have to be traversable, and there can be no imminent danger to anyone's safety. So that's the first thing we handle. We do not consider them for capital improvements, which would be things like preservation or resurfacing. Once they're in the system, they go into the next cycle of the pavement management system. So we'll do a new evaluation where we won't do a full study, but we'll do an internal study in the next 3 years. So at that time, anything that came in within that 3 years would then be incorporated into the new pavement management study and would at that time become eligible based on its ranking compared to other roads. It would then become eligible for the capital funds.
Great, thank you. Does that conclude this presentation?
Same.
All right, I want to thank you all for providing this information. I think I can speak for all my colleagues and say it was very useful. We appreciate the detail presented today. We appreciate your help, Weston and Sampson, for providing this report. And I'm sure we will all be thinking of ways that we can help to get some of these roads done and find funding to do what's best for our constituents. So item 10 on the agenda.
Move to adjourn.
Thank you.
Karen,
Yes.
McBride,
Yes.
Mackey,
Yes,
Livingston.
Yes.
Motion approved.
meeting adjourned. Thank you.